Informative, educational, objective, inclusive, comprehensive. This is Progress Report. Updates and conversations from the Government Information Service.
Good day and welcome to another episode of Progress Report, updates and conversations from the Government Information Service. My name is Ivan Khanna, my lovely co-host Gleneva Hodge, and we have with us today the Chief. Not the Chief Minister, not the Chief Fire Officer, but the Chief Probation Officer in the Department of Probation. What's probation? You ask? We're going to find out today. You didn't know that Angola had a probation department, did you? Yes, we do. Gleneva?
Miss Johnson.
Will I be on my best behavior today?
I hope so.
You hope so?
I hope so.
But we go way back, Teach.
Yes, we do.
All the way back, way back. I'm not going to go way back.
I'm surrounded by my teachers today.
Gleneva, would you stop? Yeah, we're not going to speak any age. But probation, let's start there. Like, before we get into how you got into probation, you're telling me that we have a system that's focused on reform.
Yes.
So when a person goes to prison and they come out, some come out on probation.
They come out on parole, actually.
They come out on parole.
Yes.
So where does probation come in?
Okay. Well, we started probation where, the focus of the department mandate is rehabilitation and reintegration.
Okay.
So when we talk about probation per se, we're looking at rehabilitating persons in the community, right? So the job of the Department of Probation is to assess risk and manage risk in the community, because these would have been offenders, they would have committed a crime, and because we have assessed the risk as manageable in the community, they're given a probation order.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what happens with that. Parole now, which is what you referred to in the first instance, is when they would have served a time of their sentence in prison and then are released on license. And those licenses have conditions. Probation orders also have conditions. And those are the conditions that officers of the Department of Probation supervise.
So you guys are the ones that's checking to see if they're at home certain time.
If they have curfew checks, yes. Not all orders, however, have curfew checks. Some do, some don't. So for instance, and of course so let me step back in terms of looking at the structure of the department, right? So what I would say to people is that we have two sides of the Department of Probation.
Oh, that's nice.
The
like
offender.
The scales of the law. It's cool.
Not quite. The offender management side and the residential side.
Okay.
So on the offender management side, we deal with community service, which is unpaid work. We deal with probation and parole. Yeah?
Okay.
Yes. So then we have two teams, the adult team and the juvenile team, because we have juveniles also on probation. And then we have the community service officer, who deals with unpaid work, and we also have a counselor.
When you say unpaid,
Community
UN?
service.
Oh, okay.
Unpaid.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can an offender may get an order that says they do unpaid work. Yeah, community service work, and our responsibility is to find a proper placement site.
Okay.
So that that person can do those hours. Yeah?
So why we don't see more of that, and even at a high school level, in order to graduate community service or
no, that's now a little maybe above my pay grade or beyond my remit.
Okay.
Certainly.
I think before the end of the season, we're going to get into some of that. I think.
Yeah.
I think so, because I like this unpaid work thing. I see a lot of things that could be done to get people a little bit focused.
Of course.
Yes.
And of course, we're always looking for placement sites, because one of the bigger challenges and issues for us is this whole gang issue where persons feel unsafe going to different parts or communities within Anguilla. So which means we have to be cognizant of that, and we don't do placements. If somebody says to us, we have a concern about being in this part, then we don't usually do placements. So we have very few placements beyond the valley. So we're always looking for placements external to the valley. Yeah, and we have a number of placement sites where we partner with government and non-government agencies so persons can do their
And this is not to
unpaid
say
work.
that the persons that are unpaid work are from the valley area. This is just where they feel comfortable.
It's all over. Because if we have somebody from the valley, they may not feel comfortable. If we have somebody going to Blowing Point, for instance, or if we have somebody from West End, may say, well, I don't really come to the valley. So those kind of things. It's not a one, situational thing. It's, it's something that when we looked at probation and persons started saying, oh, well, we can't accept that kind of liability either. So we have to, whether they make it up or not, we have to, we cannot assume that risk. So we try to facilitate those requests because, again, our focus is about rehabilitation and not setting up persons for failure. Yeah.
This is excellent. I know Gleneva wants to chime in here. She has a lot of questions, and I just tend to take the first 5 minutes and go down the road.
I don't think I finished describing the components of the department.
No, I don't want you to stop there just yet because I want to ask something about.
Because I might forget. That was the question that I was answering.
No, you're gonna forget.
Okay.
I still want to touch some stuff.
Okay.
On the probation side. So you do monitoring as well?
Of course, yes. That's the job of the probation officers, to monitor. Because, again, you have a probation order and a parole license. And then I want you to remind me about talking about diversion, a diversion direction. And those have conditions. And those conditions are what we monitor.
And somebody can have all three?
No.
Oh,
So that's what I'm saying. So you have a probation, so you can get a probation order, which is a supervision order. You could get a combination order or a community service order if you're on probation.
Okay.
So if Ivan Connor gets a probation order,
For all these killer looks.
then your probation order may have a curfew saying 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. It might say be gainfully employed. It might say not visit a certain place. It might say address issues of conflict resolution or anger management. It might say, you see, certain
Okay, so
things.
you would
then,
facilitate those
yes,
things.
Yeah.
Nice.
I wanted to actually take a step back because we're speaking about orders. But I think for a lot of persons who may not quite understand exactly how the system works, where those orders come from.
Okay, so let me see if I could describe the process. So what happens is, if a person has offended and has been charged by the police, taken to court, if they have pled guilty, have been found guilty, the judge or magistrate can order a pre-sentence report, right?
Okay.
So it's the duty of the probation officer to write that pre-sentence report. And the pre-sentence report covers a number of areas of the offender's life. The social, education, employment history, those kind of facets. And then primarily look at the risk. How all those things information that we've collected have impacted that person in terms of risk. And can that risk be managed in the community? Yeah?
Okay.
That report is then taken back to the court. The court uses that to determine whether or not the person is a suitable candidate for probation, and then they will be given an order. Orders can range from 6 months to 3 years, yeah, and community service for juveniles, 50 to 500 hours.
Oh, wow.
And for
Thanks
adults,
for saying hours.
50 to 1,200 hours.
Okay.
Yeah?
For 50 to 500 hours for minors.
Yes.
And a minor is what age?
We, with the Child Justice Act now, we're looking 12 to 14 up to 18.
Okay.
Yeah?
12 to 14 up to 18 as a minor.
Yes.
All right.
Well, a child.
Well, a child.
Yeah.
And adults is how many hours?
The maximum that they can get is 1,200 hours.
1,200 hours.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Great. So, Ivan kind of sidetracked it a bit. And we see this is how we roll. I have to keep track and don't let Ivan go too far.
Yes. I'm still the same Ivan from okay.
So we have the probationary side, and then we have the residential
side. Okay.
Yes.
So we also have responsibility for a 10-bed juvenile facility, primarily for boys.
Zenita Haven.
Right? Which is, yes, Zenita Haven. Yeah? And again, the focus there is rehabilitation. So how young persons can come to Zenita Haven again through a court order, probation order with a condition of residency.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right. So Zenita Haven, I spent some time there. I often, from time to time, go and speak with a young man.
We're
Yeah.
reviving that
You're
now.
reviving that.
Yes, I'm sure somebody will reach out to you.
I think they did. I think they tried.
Okay.
So a number of the young men that went through the system, I see them. I see them out now, 1 or 2 employed. What level of continued support and communication is given
Yeah.
to them outside of their order? I would
Okay.
have said they had to do this and that.
Well, that's an interesting question, and that's something that we've been grappling with for some time now, in terms of what support is offered, after, and who is responsible for that support,
Right.
So that has been a question that we've been discussing, even at the OECS level, to be quite honest, in terms of who is responsibility, because if a young person is given a court order, at the end of the order, we really have no jurisdiction. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So while we might say to the young person, we're here to support you, we set up all kind of, we try to set up as many pro-social factors prior to them leaving, whether they have a mentor, whether they're employed, and those kind of things. We really have no jurisdiction, but that is something that we're hoping to revisit.
Do you see a lot of repeat offenders?
What's a lot?
What
Twice.
is your rate of
Repeat offenders.
Recidivism?
Yes.
What's that word? Pause. You have to say it for the camera.
It is exactly what you just said.
Recidivism.
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 Yes. We were looking at that recently, and what I can tell you is it's a little over 25% we're looking at right now, yeah? Because we were looking at that. We did send some information out to someone who requested that information. So it's not where we want it to be, but certainly in the absence of a residential center, in the absence of probation, where young persons, can find their own purpose, then, it might have been zero.
So let me ask
100% rather.
Yeah, let me ask another question. What resources would be needed for this to be lowered? Don't tell me money, because money answered all things like the Bible say, but
Yeah, I mean money. because I think like stepping back a bit in the first instance, because the area of study is not one that you find a lot of persons going into in Anguilla. Criminal justice, criminology, criminal psychology, those kind of things. So you find, I mean, there is social work, but then there is the criminal aspect in terms of understanding what would lead to criminality and those kind of things. That's needed, right? So definitely a focus and a push on persons exploring those options as potential, university degree options. Yeah.
Are there scholarship opportunities available for that?
Are there any scholarships opportunities available for anything at this time?
Are you asking, are there government scholarships, or are you asking, are scholarships available
Generally.
universally?
But I think there's scholarships available for that stuff.
Oh,
like-
of course, I mean, but
and
you would
grants.
have to do your research. I really can't say off the top of my head.
Okay, so
that-
would the department, I mean, you're probably swamped, come to think of it, but you wouldn't have somebody that say, hey, we need to bolster our team. We don't see that coming up from public admin. Let's do some research. You go to conferences. These things are made available. You reach out to your partners.
You would.
Carry forward.
We've done a bit of that, to be quite honest. But like you said, in the absence, because there are a couple of things happening. Short staffing is an issue because of the same reason why. So in terms of some of the strategic planning that I would want to be undertaken, I find a lot of my time is taken up doing other things.
Actually the probationary work and other stuff.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That kind of thing, But I'm sure if persons are interested, because some years ago, somebody came, this was, in our early days, and expressed an interest, and then they came, did a summer placement, was able to get some money, and again, this was when support was being offered, and then I always have, when persons come, just write something. What did you learn? What do you think, we should be doing better? Or what did you think is going well? Then found out it was something, like you were saying, when I was a teacher, that I had written, that was written about me in the Anguilla Teachers Union newsletter that made them curious about the area of criminology. You see, things like that, for instance. And I guess opportunities like this where, you're hoping that persons hear more about the area and become interested.
Go ahead, Wendy.
That's just kind of on the same train of thought. There's the annual careers fair at the high school. Is that something that the department takes part in? Because it's not... I too am learning and seeing that there are opportunities outside of, what you think is the narrow norm.
We have done that in the past, but I'm going to be quite honest. In the last few years, we have not.
Right.
Yeah, and that's again about coordination and those kind of things. But we have in the past. And what you find a lot more of the students are interested in the hospitality area.
Because the service charge.
The service.
But is it that you're interested in the things that you are seeing? Because I did tourism, and I did tourism because that is what I saw.
And then in terms of some of the subject areas, for instance, again, when I was teaching, I was in humanities. So the whole social studies and those kind of things, sociology at sixth form level, English B is something that really helps in terms of looking at your analytical skills and those kind of things. And I mean, persons, have other interests. But like I said, there are a lot of interest now in social work because the UWI Open Campus does that. We are pleased to have assisted a number of persons in doing their practicums with the department. I'm sure like other departments in under the ministry. So, they get a flavor of the work that we do.
It takes a special heart to be involved in reform, service, probation,
addressing recidivism.
Recidivism. Do you get any support from the clergy? Why do you provide any sort of training to the clergy? I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong, and I think we're out of the box. Nothing has changed with iPhone. I just
because I'm wondering where that question came from.
But I'm thinking you obviously short staff, and it's not short staff as in your staff short. You don't have people there.
Yes.
Good, because people does hear things and see things differently. But I think you can bolster your support system with the things that should be doing this stuff.
Doing what stuff?
Assisting in reform of persons.
But remember, the department has a mandate, so we will not necessarily reach out to the clergy to say, well, we need you to supervise this offender.
No, I mean supervising. I mean, so they run through let's call it a plan of care. What do you call it when they go through the whole process?
We develop a care plan?
Yeah. Okay. So they go through their care plan. Time has passed. I asked earlier.
Okay.
What next for them? You say you try to place them in employment support. I think we need to see more support services from places like our church and those type of things. I think our community college needs to offer maybe some short stuff that are not a fixed price, so they can start to get into learning environments and stuff again.
But I must say, somebody offending does not exclude them from learning opportunities.
But
and we provide that. We have had persons who go to the ACC, Comprehensive Learning Center. We expose them to as many opportunities. They do cooking, sushi making. They do all of that stuff.
I understand.
They have a whole full summer program. They went on the ship yesterday. You went on the ship?
No.
You went on the ship? I didn't go on the ship.
So what you're saying is that opportunities still exist for them to be.
It's not
whole
and we definitely try to provide, because when you're 15, 16, 17, you don't necessarily know what you want to do.
Yeah.
When you come from environments that aren't necessarily supportive of your interest, would nurture any interest, for instance, because I must say we haven't baked bread in years. Residents under the supervision of a staff member baked bread at the center. You know, that kind of thing. So they learn life skills. Some of them come in camp not being able to wash. Now they're ironing their own clothes. And, you know,
Yeah.
so it's a
It's
it's a holistic kind of approach to the young person.
But this is what I'm getting at.
Okay, tell
when
me.
they're there at Zeneda Haven, perhaps, they have that constant touch. Somebody that cares. They come out and they're in that transitionary process. You're there. You have that touch. Somebody that cares. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, they're alone
There's
again.
nothing. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
How do we constantly have somebody present in their lives?
And that's, like I said to you, hopefully the mentors continue that relationship.
Okay.
That's not something that we monitor because they are assigned mentors. And also, as I said before, that's a discussion that we still continue to have
Okay.
because we see that as a gap in our service.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm good with that.
So, again, this is, for me, a lot of new information.
Okay.
The probationary side of the monitoring. So someone who isn't given a residential order, maybe someone who isn't a juvenile,
An adult who
An
is
adult
given a probation
probationary
order.
order. And then I think you said that there are sometimes that those orders can have certain stipulations.
Yes, they're conditions.
So, conditions. And one of those conditions could be curfew. How is that monitoring done? I know. Listen, I'm pulling from books, TV. Even news, you know, I know for some places they have like ankle monitors, and
But in
those
the Caribbean, your neighbors know your business. So
those monitoring devices if you're not supposed to go outside
Yes. We have been exploring that option now for some time. Electronic monitoring. We have not gotten there yet.
of. Okay.
do
And
we need
it's-
funding?
But as you said, not to talk about money.
No, but we just put a plug here. all the time. Money and funding is two different things. So,
Ivan has found a fountain of money. I don't know where because Ivan puts a plug every time.
everywhere. Ministry of
we
Finance.
definitely- we
Ministry of
definitely-
Finance, we need some funding for ankle monitors. How much do we need? You need to
A
put it out
lot.
there. A lot. You can't say a lot because they
No,
just need-
because again, those are not figures that I came prepared.
I understand, but you
to-
not figure.
to
This is how this
discuss.
works. Trust me. This is the, if you look right in this camera, you call a figure.
We need 50,000 US annually.
That's it?
And that's for just at least 5 monitors.
That's it.
That's for now, 5 monitors.
We could do that.
Yeah?
We can do that.
This is fun.
I thought you
I
want
said at least-
$400,000.
It might be that. It might be that.
No,
'Cause
we-
did I say annually or monthly?
You said
Forgive me. Forgive me. You know what? I'm
she
trying.
started seeing all kind of programs and initiatives. She's like, oh my God.
Annually or monthly? Because I'm going to be quite honest with you. Because we had, like I said, we made a number of attempts at electronic monitoring. We had somebody come out from the UK, from Serco. This was like in the early days of probation. I had traveled to the Cayman Islands, looking at 3M and electronic monitoring there. There was one time, I think it was Governor, one of the governors had done one of the monitors, and then we were engaging a company out of Miami who also came down to Anguilla and looked at what we would have needed. So we did have some discussions with them, and also a company out of Barbados who had presented quite a nice package for us. But again, every year, additional spending, it's always a competitive thing.
Yeah, but it's
And-
budget season now and it's budget cycle
Yeah.
now. So,
So I put
that's
it
why I
in
put
now.
that plug for you there. And
So I did say
loved-
50, I said
50,000 for the year.
No, monthly.
For the month, 50,000 easy for the month.
For the month, yeah.
For the 50,000
the
easy for the month, not 50,000 US for the year. Make sure you get it right.
50,000 US for the month.
50,000 US for the month.
The quotation I got from the company out of Barbados is probably that. I would
Okay.
have to go revisit those.
For 5
numbers.
monitors.
We were starting between 5 and 10 with him.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the thing about that is because you have to have 5 and 10 people,
Please
because
wait.
then you're paying
Of course.
For what? Right.
what you're not using.
And is that a number that we currently maintained?
In terms of it can be, It can be. Because remember I spoke about diversion as well. Because
What is diversion?
Because we just last year passed the Child Justice Act, which introduces diversion for juvenile offenders. So it's about diverting them from the formal court processes. Yeah?
Okay.
The Act also provides for the age of adult being 18, because there was some anomalies in the in previous legislation, and age of responsibility between 12 and 14, and it also allows for expungement of records. And
That was major.
yes.
That was major, yeah.
So now we're looking, so young persons who could be on diversion orders, they would perhaps, most of them have curfew conditions, and so those kind of, and a monitoring bracelet would be useful in those kind of situations. So diversion is a big addition to the responsibilities of the department when we are looking at, so it's a whole new process now that officers would have been trained in, and we are currently working through. Yeah.
That's excellent.
I think, it's something that the more young persons we can get to before they get into the formal court system and into that system, that what was the residential system, I think the better. And like the word itself says it. It's a diversion.
Diversion.
It diverts their
and however
paths, their
they
paths.
too have conditions which they have to first say, yes, I accept responsibility. It's not a admission of guilt, it's that I accept responsibility for that particular offense, and so that then says and so they have to agree to diversion. And they have several opportunities to be diverted before, and if the diversion board does not feel like it's a matter that should be diverted, then it's sent to the court and it is dealt with formally through the court.
Okay. So you have a diversion board. Is that similar to the parole board and how that works?
In a sense, the Child Justice Board, but the Child Justice Board is headed by a magistrate.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
So, and persons...
Okay. Question.
I'm going to come back to the parole board when Ivan is...
Prevention, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Are you considered prevention or cure or both?
A bit of both, because I do work with persons who are interested in prevention. And I would, I'm always in the area of suggesting, volunteering the services of staff to, we've done, and again with COVID, we haven't done any of this in terms of going to the school, dealing with conflict resolution, bullying, those kind of things. We've done our community outreach and those kind of things. So we take that part of our responsibility quite seriously in supporting, we've gone to churches, we've gone to summer programs, those kind of things.
How are you reaching folks with those messages though? Do you have any communications that is attached to your unit?
Ivan sounds like he's offering his
No.
Like again, because we
you
want
see how stretched I am? If I turn on the side, right?
We want a number of arms.
You want a number of arms?
A number of arms.
And Nancy.
Right? To assist with the development, promotion, and expansion of the services of the Department of Probation. But no, I think for us, it's always interesting because we always do a probation and youth series in the paper. How many of you have read that?
They don't read that.
Okay, see?
Target audience. Let's be honest.
We have done when there was we have done community service campaigns. We've done annual. We've done like targeting information sharing sessions. Like I said, the ministry does its outreach, Radio Anguilla, wherever. We've done our community bit, like I said, going out and speaking to people. We have a Facebook page, not very, very, very active, but it's there. But in terms of, for me personally, I don't think persons offending isn't sexy an area, it's not, so persons are not necessarily interested. You hear people, I never want to go to court, I don't want to see what the person look like, so they're not necessarily interested in this area of work. So even years after, people would be like, "Oh, I never heard about probation." I'm like, "Are we doing all this work?
Yeah, that's my thing. So that's my thing.
And I'm
All this work promoting outside the banks, handing out things, and
That's what I'm talking about.
and
the
so
stuff was in the banks. We had pamphlets, all kind of things. I mean, that does not so much now. What is probation? We had all that stuff out and about, and you've never seen it.
Listen, if you put latest to say that message and sing about it, talk about it,
Yeah.
you're gonna clearly listen to that.
I'm gonna reach out to him.
Yeah, you can talk. No, for real. So in marketing, I always end up here. So in marketing, you have to consider what is called a 360 approach, because there are these touch points that you have to get, and then you have to consider the medium of your messaging as well. And this thing about influencers, everybody know Burna Boy.
But I just heard about him. Who
You
he
just
is?
heard about
Well,
Burna Boy?
but you know.
I heard the name and I said, "Well, what is this about?" So which means I have to go do some research.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's because
If I could sing, I would say, last.
that song with breakfast and whatever you be saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I'm just trying to keep it as close down as possible. But I'm saying, like, there are influencers that we have locally that can get the message across.
Okay.
And I don't think we tap into them enough, because there's a bit of respect that they get.
So Ivan, what I am hearing.
No.
Yes. yes.
You hearing things?
See, Ivan just put things out there and I kind of like this
and then back
meld
up.
and pull them together. So what I'm hearing Ivan offer is a sit down session with you.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Yes, telling you and
I'm
you
open
know
to that. Let me see.
exploring options.
Can I
checking
look
your
at my
calendar?
calendar now?
Yes, we are exploring options in
Initially,
which
when I sent him an email, I said next, because there was such confusion with me and this thing. This was a busy week. So next Tuesday for me,
You
or
free?
Wednesday is free. So
See,
there you go. See,
we could set a time right now.
so just so I put it on record, you have to call the Ministry of Finance. My PS and my PS take my time very seriously.
Oh, really? We'll meet
So
after
tell them
hours.
that.
yes, Ivan,
I
you
work
are
9 to 5.
Oh man.
there you go. What you're
I
going
work
to do
9
is
to
you're
5.
going to go and offer your services.
Then Miss Harden had just say, "Who? Where? Do they know you work for the Ministry of Finance?"
You were very, very interested in this line of unpaid work earlier.
Oh my gosh!
I got
You're
you.
coming to the meeting with me. There we go.
9 to 5. Just remember,
9 to
I'm
5.
there at 5.
Okay.
Yes. So
And beyond sometimes.
No, but I have no problem having that conversation. Definitely, I think we
But,
can really partner and look to tap into the things that work other places. And it's not that you don't want these things to work out. You haven't explored them. I understand the challenge that you
Yes,
have.
of course.
Something like probation, you need probably about 20-30 people in Anguilla, and that's a
that's
unit. That's a
that-
department.
Yeah.
I think you got what,
But
3?
it's, no, oh no, oh no, oh
yeah.
no, oh no. How much do I have? I have on the residentials. Okay, let me tell you what it's supposed to have. On the residential side, 3 teams of 4 and a supervisor.
No, I mean in your office alone. I mean by the homes.
resident.
and yeah.
So I'll come into there.
Uh-huh.
So I was talking about the makeup. So 3 teams of 4, the supervisor, a cook, cleaner, and security and a driver.
That's
Yeah?
20.
So that's 20 already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but-
And then on the probation side, we have a counselor. We have 2 teams. The adult team is a team of 4. The juvenile team is a team of 3. And then we now have the community service diversion officer, because that person will be responsible for supervising the diversion orders. And then there is, but not all those people are in place, eh? So then there's provisions for a deputy that I never had, and another community service officer. So
you're
now,
gonna get in trouble though, because some people are saying that we need to reduce the civil service, so you can't say that we need
See,
those things. and
I've
we need
always,
those
I've
things.
always said sometimes it's not necessarily a reduction, but more of a shifting.
Yeah, because I think there are some civil servants in certain areas that are not being totally utilized.
Utilized.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in probation, it goes with the numbers, you know. And sometimes you have persons supervising 12, 15 persons. Sometimes you have them supervising 5, you know. And then of course that then depends on how much offending. But then do you say you don't need probation officers?
Right.
You know, that kind of thing. You know, so. But I know for me, because I don't have a senior adult, and then this goes back to interest and training in the area. A probation officer adult for some time now, you know, and then we are looking for. I just closed some advertisements for a probation officer adult. Somebody transferred out of the department, and yeah, so. And then we had some retirements and one coming up, you know, so it's things shift, you know.
Do you
that.
see any opportunity for some secondment from other Caribbean islands or some folks to come from the States and do internships and or rotating?
But we connect with the UK, right? So
Okay, let me say the UK.
Yeah.
So you see opportunity for that? You don't want to answer? No, we don't edit. This is updates and conversations. You are free to say what you want. No, you know, as there is light in
We
this
have
studio.
been exploring those options. They haven't come to fruition.
Why not?
I can't answer that question.
So you want those options to come to fruition? You
Of course.
say what you want.
Ivan is
here,
up
you get
in
it.
here waving a wand.
Yeah, we got a magic all this stuff.
We have explored, like you're saying, we're connected to the UK. We've discussed how we could facilitate. Well, I've raised it. I can't say we've discussed it, but I've raised it. I know I was on a conference call with a couple of months ago with some other probation services, and the question I asked, who advocates for Anguilla? I don't think I got the answer for that.
Oh, wow.
In terms of resources and those kind of things, because Bermuda was talking about what they were getting. This person was talking about what they were getting. So I just want to know for us
Who advocates
in terms
for us?
of support, because there was a time when we did get a lot of support from the for the department. You know, my officers would have gone on attachments in the UK. We've had persons come down and offer support and those kind of things.
And what happened?
I tried to revisit it. I never really got an answer.
Okay, so we need an answer.
So
That's what we do. Yeah, we need
you know,
an
I
answer.
tried to revisit it.
I mean, because you need people.
Of course we do,
We need
we
people.
need persons who are trained in the
Yes,
area.
and the training, we can't sit down for 4 years while somebody's being trained, then they get an offer and they renege on
And
their
that has
bond.
happened.
I didn't touch that
that
with
has
you. I
happened.
ain't touching that with you. They renege on their
happened.
bond, but in the same time,
Yeah.
you have all these compounding of issues.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind if folks are transient, and
And I believe people, if you know, who want to move on,
Yeah.
should move on. And I'm always, you know, happy to see people wanting to
Right.
advance.
Yes.
So that's not an area, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, you know, we're persons where we're not getting the support in terms of continuous investment and training, professional development opportunities, those kind of things.
so
you know?
do we put the $50,000 a month in that as opposed to the ankle
The
monitors?
electronic, it makes it easier for officers, because officers actually do physical checks.
So we still need a monitor.
We do need a
So we're gonna
monitor.
need about $100,000 then. Because,
month?
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
See, this is what you get yourself in.
They're gonna say.
Before Ivan digs himself into an even bigger hole.
Yeah, but I think like you, I mean, said before, not to discuss money, but in terms of resources, that's the basis of it, isn't it? The basis of all the resources that we need has a foundation in finance. So
I'll take the message back.
Especially
You
since
know,
he can't
so-
lend his time outside of.
yeah,
So,
but I mean, like I said, 401. I'm in my office.
yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to go back a little bit and speak about parole and what does parole look like. So we spoke about, you know, you can get a probationary order and how you can get to that point. What does parole and the system of parole look like?
So, again, for parole, and I'm going to be quite general, the offender has to serve 2/3 of his or her order before they become eligible for parole.
Okay.
They have to make a parole application. Once the parole application is made to the prison, that's internal to the prison, then we're informed that the person has made that application. What happens prior to that is once an inmate has been sentenced and has been identified as suitable for parole, they're assigned a probation officer from the outset. So then that officer has responsibility of getting to know that person, getting the victim information, putting a little thing together in anticipation of a parole application.
Okay.
Yeah? So when that comes and we're notified, then a dossier is coordinated at the prison from all parties who have been involved with the inmate. That is sent to the Department of Probation, and the assigned officer then puts together a pre-parole investigative report, right? And again, that is looking, again, whether or not the risk of that person can be managed in the community. That's the basis of it. Yeah. So using all the information that has been gathered, whether or not the person actively engaged in rehabilitative programs, how they interacted with, the rules of the prison, all that stuff, family support, those kind of things are looked at, and a determination is made, and then that report, of course, again, contact is made with the victim for a victim impact statement. Yeah. And that is attached to the report, and then that is sent back to the prison. The parole board secretary then sends that to the board. A date is set, the hearing happens, and then a decision is made.
So the board comprises of how many persons?
5
persons.
Yes.
And these 5 persons, are they just random members of the community, or are they set prescribed persons who need to be
the legislation again speaks to a person who will have a social services background, a legal background, a member of the community, those. Okay.
This is volunteer or paid?
The parole board gets a stipend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to recap, Department of Probation, you have two. Let's see. This is class. You have you have 2 tracks. You have the residential track, and you have the probation parole track. And under the probation and parole, you have persons who are given probation orders, persons who were given parole orders,
license.
License.
They're released on license. That's it.
Okay, so there, and then you have persons who have diversion orders,
Yes.
and that's a new one.
Yeah.
Good. And then for the residential, you have the Zenida. And I know by doing a recap, I would remember my question. And so you have Zenida as the residential aspect for juvenile boys. What is in place for juvenile girls?
Well, not a center.
So they are juvenile offending girls cannot be given
a residential
order.
Not how it stands now. No. Because when the center opened in 2009, it was deemed a short-term interim measure.
Okay.
But we have folks there for a year.
No, I'm saying short-term interim measure. You are misunderstanding.
That's why I
you
waited.
explain.
I was waiting for that to go because I don't think it meant for short-term stays and
it
sentences.
That
it was supposed to be a interim facility
until the co-ed facility.
Okay.
Is built,
and that has not
so we need money for a facility. We had
Finance has that information.
Dr. Olufemike Banks-Devonish, and she is supposed to be getting, let me not say later, we need money for a facility as well.
Finance has that.
Finance has that.
They have the requirements, and they also
the drawings.
not drawings, in terms of what a building should have, because I'm not an architect, but I could tell them what I need.
Okay. And where you want it built, because this is what we discussed on this
It wouldn't be me.
Yeah, where you want it built. She doesn't see what we're doing here.
Listen,
Wherever government has land available.
Ivan has advocated for
I will advocate.
and who else?
several facilities
Yes.
so far,
And they have them? They have
No, we just started advocating. One season in, just give me some time to have this manifest, man. Come on.
Yeah, Ivan has been.
So that was a request made of us a year, 2 years ago. Well, I've submitted it a few times in terms of what a residential center should have, and we got a pricing from Maiku.
So what do these offending young ladies do now? They go back home?
They could go on probation, so they could be given a probation order. Yeah. So it's for the public now to say whether that's a fair thing or not.
No, we're going to get an uproar from this. Trust you.
Right? But
it is important that this information is out there, and so that you have. And I say this to Ivan all the time. At the end of the day, and we make a lot of jokes, and Ivan is the public relations officer for the government of Anguilla, and
it's after full.
no, but that is your title. Yes. I don't work for government of Anguilla, but I see my role in this is to ensure that we have an informed public.
That's it.
And a lot of times for those of us, and I speak as someone who operates outside of the public service, a lot of times the general public outside of don't necessarily understand the role and function of a lot of government departments and the relationships that exist between departments and ministries, and so for me, I see that as my role in terms of coming in here and asking the questions that I think some people within the system, through no fault of their own, that they take for granted simply because that is what they do day in and day out. So
and what's interesting for us is that we've been here for 17 years now.
You say what?
We're almost grown.
Almost no longer a child.
Hold on, don't do that to me. You've been
I've been out of teaching 17 years. Yes.
No, stop.
Yes.
You just gave me a instant headache.
I'll give you a bigger one later.
Oh my gosh.
So
that is insane.
Yeah.
So what's the vision of the department? Like
in the vision?
Vision and the mission of the department. As simple as
it is simply we're a catalyst for a safer Anguilla. Yeah? And how we are hoping to do that work is to support, and I'm paraphrasing, in terms of supporting persons, the offending persons, by identifying their needs and providing support for them through rehabilitation and positive reintegration into the community. So overall, when we look at how we deal with offenders, we are trying to ensure that we have a safe Anguilla, right? And I said earlier that we are not setting persons up for failure. Yeah. So yes, they may have offended, but we also have to look at rehabilitation as a tool to their assistance and our role as agents in nation building. Yeah? Because at the end of the day, we want persons, like you want persons to be productive persons within the society. And we want that too. So it's about how do we assist them in overcoming real or perceived challenges. Yeah? So there's a number of things that we do in terms of looking at the offender. For instance, with community service, we look at what we call a best fit principle. Yeah? So we look at what are you particularly interested in, and we try to set your community service to suit that interest. Because then, if it's something that you're not interested in or you don't like, if we send you to do it, then you're not going to show up. Then you're going to breach your order. And then you're going to, you see what I'm saying? The other thing we do in community service as well is a 20-80 split. Yeah? Where an offender may come to us for community service, and we recognize that there are other challenges and they may need additional resources, whether counseling, whether job support, something. And we have taken upon ourselves to look at up to 20% of their hours to provide that kind of support.
Oh, nice.
You know, so we try to be innovative in meeting the offender management needs of the person, because again, we are managing risk and we don't want them to be out there,
Right.
even though some of them do, you know, out in the community, because we also have a public protection role. Because if we are managing persons, we are saying to the public, we are protecting you because we have said that this risk is manageable.
Right.
Yeah?
That's interesting. I like what I've heard. It gives me a lot of hope. Especially with the fact that I know that you're doing some preventative work. And that is a focus and a mandate of your department and of your office. How much of the persons that would have been successfully rehabilitated, if that's the term that you use, come back and contribute in any way to the system? Speak with offenders
Interesting.
in the system now, and that the like of those things.
Interesting question. Oh, I have to think about that, because it wouldn't be a lot.
I think,
You know,
that can be a
who would-
contribution that can be made too.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, what we've done, to be quite honest, and it could be, what we know is that particularly the young men, you know, once if they see their you know, juvenile care workers or those kind of persons out, they're always very respectful. So
Yeah,
you
I
have
get-
that.
I
You
get
have
that.
that. Yeah, but to say that persons have come back, to say that persons have come back, I cannot speak to that. And when I pause, I remember there was a conversation I had with somebody coming to Zenada Haven who would have been there and that kind of thing. So, yeah, but the numbers wouldn't be significant.
But I
Yeah.
think that's actually something that
Yeah.
if the opportunity exists and to come in,
Because
so-
that's also a discussion that I had with on the Zenada Haven side, in particular, with the residents who would have gone on to do well, documenting that and having those clips and that kind of thing. And maybe Ivan could help us collate that and
note all of that
I have a
down
lot of
in
work
your meeting.
for Ivan.
It's a good thing my name is Mulenga.
So yeah, so we've had those discussions, but again, in terms of coordination and those kind of things, because we've had residents go on to do quite well. We have residents
Yeah.
who have left us and become police officers in different jurisdictions, have their own businesses, you know. that kind of
I'll
thing.
be honest in telling you that there are success stories in your department,
Yeah.
through your department. Lives have been changed, so I don't want people to think it's all doom and gloom. And
No,
we're
it's
saying
not.
here
Oh,
that we
no.
want this facility.
Oh, no.
No, but I know if you get us a facility and you can get the best chefs coming out of there, if you can get the best carpenters coming out of there. I know you
Yeah.
got plans and dreams and visions, and you from nothing you're seeing the best and the potential in people. That's why you got into this.
Yeah.
But you need the resources.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
not just the resources,
And
the
listen-
human resources, the
And financial.
resources.
And it's not only for me to see the potential in them. Our job is to have them see the potential in themselves. You
That's
know,
nice.
and again, we do a number of things to, like I said, facilitate that. Whether the one-on-ones.
So I just get all kind of ideas.
Oh, Lord.
I'm creative and very visual. So when you started talking about that stuff now, what programs like you're thinking about and having?
What programs I think about in having
Yeah, like do you have a program that you want to see launch now that isn't launched as yet?
a program. Well, I have a couple of needs for this center.
Such
Because
as?
we're looking at, we want a half a court. Well, we want a half a court size slab at the center. We've been trying to get that for some time
Yes.
now. Yeah, because we wanted it as a multi-use space because it play a number of games and sports. And then the other thing we want is a gazebo to facilitate meetings and those kind of things because the center is quite small.
Yeah,
But what
it
I
is.
say is a lot of great work happens in that small space because what we can boast and say that some time ago that we hosted 16 delegates from the OECS when they were looking at residential care and the development of residential care in the region and Anguilla was looked at as a model having had our policy documents in place, our structures in place, our job description. So we had all those things.
And the
so
space, if I might add, the space is utilized well.
Yeah.
The guys had a garden in the back. They were doing a little bit of recycling, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
They wanted to set up their little greenhouse thing. That's why the poles were there. They just need
Yes.
some resources.
Yes, and that's true. So
So as much as we laugh and we make fun and joke with Ivan and his magic wand, I will say this. There's always going to be persons within the community who are always looking for ways to give back. And so by putting these things out there, there's always
Don't tell her the
opportunity.
magic.
I am putting it out there for those persons who are looking at ways to give back to the community.
so I did
you know,
say about the multi
use.
space, the gazebo, and also the provision, because our young men need jobs. Internships and those kind of things. So staff are quite good in finding those. But again, with COVID, the challenge, you know, there has been a challenge in placements, you know, so. But
If there's an employer out there who's listening and they would like to offer 1 or 2 placements at their establishment,
Yes.
how do they reach you? What should they do? Let's just put that out there for them.
Well, they can contact the Department of Probation at 497-7343. So they can contact myself, and then I will be able to direct them in terms of what next.
A fisherman goes fishing. He said, man, let me get the Zenada Haven 30 pounds of fish. Because they cook there, they have to feed these children. What do they do?
They contact me.
What's the number again?
497-7343. We accept the fish. And the good thing about it is, having said that, the boys go fishing.
Yes, I know.
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
Because when you said, I said, you know, they went Prickly Pear too.
Yes.
You went Prickly Pear?
No, I
You
didn't
went-
go
Okay,
Prickly
yeah.
Pear. I went Prickly Pear, but not Prickly Pear.
that kind of thing. So they had an excursion.
This is where I want to go.
Prickly Pear on the 20th.
I'm ready for you now.
Well,
So you're primed up in the last 5
yeah.
minutes.
Prime, don't get fight.
Oh,
it
last
happens all the time.
yeah.
It may be a little bit of a reach. It may not be something that you're familiar with. We don't have a military here. But I know of one young man. Lord, he was on the path to prison. His brother took him up from here, sent for him from the USVI. He went to school, graduated top of his class. He has US rights. He is in the Air Force now. What opportunities are available for our young men with a particular set of skills? Not she's gonna laugh. So I've been trying. So the backstory to it is she has a very, very interesting laugh, and I've been trying to get it out on set. So I just plug these little things, and I'm pulling that from the movie.
Taken.
So but they have a special skill set, and you can see, you know, it's only in the US they start to look at people with the ASVAB. And those type of things that say they'll be good in the Air Force, they'll be good in the Marines, and that they have those disciplines. Has there been any thought given to the young men in this system to pursue a military career with the United Kingdom?
Actually, no.
I think we need to look at those things. They went out there on the ship, right? I know they're excited about that thing.
I'm waiting to get a report.
But those are opportunities that everybody is not going to sit down here, build house, work in the hotel.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So give them those opportunities.
But you know, yes, of course. And again, if those opportunities are available to us, we'll happily explore them. You know, I know we have one young man who left here. He was a part of the national football team and traveled nationally from the center. We requested an early release for him so that he can do that. And then he migrated to England, and now I understand that he's at university and that kind of thing. So, like I said, once we are aware, and again, because we look at how much community support that we can get, it's important that not only that we outreach, which we often try to do, but like you're saying, persons say, what can I do?
Yeah, I've seen so many persons that went to school in Angola, grew up in Angola, but have U.S. rights, take the military as their career path. And it does not have to be the U.S. military. I think from a government standpoint, that needs to be something that's explored. It can be an opportunity.
I know that those conversations were being had through a different organization where they were looking at exploring any linkages and what they can do, but different conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
In other words, Ivan, put a pin right there.
And the reason we're putting a pin right there is because we have reached the end of our time.
Yes, we have. You see how fast it goes by?
Yes. I don't remember anything.
I did one.
I didn't put my foot in my mouth.
No. I can guarantee you it wasn't there.
And if you did blame Ivan,
Of course.
right?
it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll accept the blame.
But thank you so much, not just for coming on, but thank you so much for reaching out
Yes.
to us and for wanting to bring to the public what the Department of Probation is all about, what you do, and how we as a community can assist. So I want to just say thank you and turn over to Ivan.
I say thank you again. I would have to reiterate for persons that think this is a politically driven show. It's not. This is the Government Information Service. I mean, I don't think people understand in the totality what it is, but it is what it says it is. It's a government information service. There are things happening in government that we want to make sure the community, the public is informed. There are linkages that people only got a whiff or an idea of based on the conversations we have here. I'm hoping that they can sift through now and understand that you're linked to police, you're linked to DYC, you are linked
I didn't even have to say it.
See? Those things came out, so it's not that you sit upstairs where they collect the money from the fathers. Yeah, we're touching that.
In your wrapping up, having said that, we do have an MOU with 7 agencies. That because again, one of our things is receiving information. We don't necessarily go out and collect information, but we receive. So it's important, like you said, that the police,
Yes.
give us if we're in labor, immigration,
Yes.
the SD, like you said, education.
You don't
So
operate
all
in
of
a
those-
silo, and when I was impressed when you said that there's a process that goes through these things. Somebody is considered for parole. There's a whole investigation done. You even go back to the victim if they're in a space or here alive or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And people think, I don't want folks to think that decisions are just made ad hoc
Oh, no.
in Anguilla. And
no.
again, this might sound slightly political, but the elected officials don't make these decisions. It's the technocrats.
Yeah.
This show is for the technocrats because you ladies and gentlemen in the civil service do a lot of work.
Oh yes, and my team definitely does a lot.
Do a lot of work, and the country runs on your oil. Like it's your back the country runs on, and people need to understand that. You know what elected officials do? They're supposed to legislate. They're the one that goes to the House of Assembly and they pass laws and amendments. But where that information come from to do that?
Yes. Yeah.
So if anybody think that somewhere, somehow, Minister Deanne Kentis Rogers, who is the Minister of Social Development and Education, which you fall under, correct?
Yes. Department of
That she's over there saying this person need to go on it's not happening. That's not how it works. Don't call her and say my son.
And I don't say that.
And you don't say there's a whole board. Like this is the thing that we're saying. There's a whole board. There's
legislation.
There's
first of all.
legislation.
There's the Probation Act. There's the Probation Act, and now we have the Child Justice Act.
There's legislation, the Probation Act,
the regulations.
Child Justice Act, regulations.
Yes.
There's a board
Yes.
that's guided by
There's several
bylaws.
boards.
There's several boards. This thing is huge.
Yes.
Yeah,
This thing is
it
huge. It's
is.
not ad hoc. It's not
It
just
requires
thrown out there.
coordination, so.
And that's exactly what it is. And I am personally impressed. We've
you.
made a plug for your facility.
Yes.
You can just name a wing of it after me.
Myself and I.
I love it. But I know I definitely want to see those things. I'm impressed when I walk around and I see what Anguilla is doing right now in terms of government infrastructure. I made a plug on our previous show to get the Albion Lake Hodge Comprehensive Campus, the original one, pushed down so we can put a stuff there when we had the director of sports here.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm gonna make another plug for a different thing for you.
Oh,
So we can put it out there. No, I'm a creative.
Okay.
And I understand what my Bible says, that life and death is in your tongue. So you have to, if you don't speak and say what you want, get up for the next week and say, listen, I want government to call me on your thing that you sent up there last year. Wait, is this? Wait,
They asked me for a proposal, I think it
yeah,
was.
so get up tomorrow morning, all over the weekend, so they're going to call me next
They're
week.
going to call me next week because I was here in Ivan, right?
You best believe it. They're going to feel the energy and that's how it works.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in as always. We are here to bring you updates and conversations from the Government Information Service with the people that are on the front lines, the people that matter, and the people that get it done. Like our guest this evening, Teacher Jocelyn.
I still hear that.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you'll be back, right?
Well, if you want me back, I'm
Definitely.
sure I have other things to
No, there's a lot we didn't touch on today. Because Neva is going to look deep into this stuff now.
And then she'll call me back.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
you
say
best
that.
believe that.
But thank you for having me.
All right, great.